my name is Meleena James, and I have the honor and privilege of just serving as college director in Nacogdoches, Texas, SFA, Axum Jacks. And the cool part is I get to do it with my husband. So John James, if you have not met him or you're like, maybe I've met him, if you don't know, you haven't met him yet. So big personality, so much fun. And we actually get to be college directors together. So we do ministry together, work together, married together, do family together, do relationships together. And it has been a joy with a lot of moving pieces and a lot of things. But I kind of want to just get to know you guys a little bit. I wish last year when I did something like this, my biggest thing was I walked away and I was like, gosh, I wish I had all of their phone numbers and I wish I could just see how they're doing or see what God's doing in their ministries. And so feel free. I would love to connect with you outside of this time to talk to you, figure out what God is doing or answering more specific questions you may have, or really just learning from you. I got to sit with a lot of people this morning and just learn from them and what God was doing in their ministries because I'm still learning. I'm really aware of the fact that I'm still really young and God has a lot of maturing to do in my life. Haven't even hit 30 yet, but I'm so excited for 30. I feel like my bed is going to be made every day when I'm 30. That is going to be the moment of achievement. It's when the throw pillows are actually where they're supposed to be. And so karate chopped will be when I'm 40. They'll actually, that Pinterest, whatever, it's you chop it in the middle. Right now, that's my toddler's jobs is to karate chop the pillows, and they think it's really fun. And I'm I'm actually trendy, with karate chopped pillows. But so if y'all could just say your name really quick, kind of what role you have in your ministry, and where you're from, what church you're with. So we'll start over here and just kind of go around.
My name is Kayla. I'm with UHBC, University Heights Baptist Church. I'm in Huntsville, Texas, and I'm currently preparing to be a small group leader.
Cool.
My name's Taylor Redden. I'm also from University Heights at St. Mason State, and I'm currently a small group leader.
Awesome.
My name is Ashton from College Station, Brazos Fellowship, A&M area. And then I am a college intern and then also a small group leader.
Cool.
I'm Kylie, also from Brazos Fellowship, A&M College Station area. Also an intern, also small group leader.
Cool.
My name is Edna. I go to Houston First Baptist Church and I am a small group leader.
My name is Christian. I also go to Houston First Baptist Church and I'm preparing to be a small group leader.
Cool.
My name is Amy. I'm from Christ Chapel Bible Church, which is less than 2 miles down the road.
Yes, I've heard of Christ Chapel.
I'm director of shepherding.
Ooh, I need to sit with you. Teach me how to do that.
My name is Alexi. I'm also at Christ Chapel Bible Church, right down the road here in Fort Worth, and I am on the staff with the outreach department for our college ministry, so women's director of that program.
Cool.
My name is Shelby. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa, Walnut Creek Church.
Ooh.
I have a similar role to you. My husband's the director of college ministry, and I'm on staff there.
Cool.
I'm Sarah Ramsey at the Heights Fellowship in Lubbock, Texas. I work with our college ministry there and we run a small groups.
Cool. That's awesome.
My name is Seth. I'm with Hillcrest Baptist Church in Cedar Hill.
I know
I'm a member of the
Hillcrest.
leadership team and small group leader.
That's awesome. Do you know Irvin Waswa at all?
I do.
Oh, that's my boy. Love him. So keep going.
My name is Blake. I'm also from Hillcrest Baptist Church, and I'm on the leadership team and a small group leader for our college ministry.
Cool.
My name is Andres. I'm from Austin, the Austin Town, and I work with our college ministry.
That's great.
I'm Emily. I'm from the Grimley Baptist Church in Tyler, and I'm the college minister's wife.
Yes, you are.
I'm Blake, First Baptist Pembroke, which is just south of Fort Worth, and I'm the student and family pastor there.
Cool. That's great.
My name is Blake as well. And I am the leader of the student ministry at Harvey Baptist Church in Stephenville, Texas.
Cool.
Tarleton State.
Yes. What's that sign? What's Tarleton? Because they're
I think we're two. I'm an alumni. It's terrible. I didn't
My wife would know. She's like an RL and all of that.
I feel like Tarleton and SFA are like the most like copycatty. Yeah. Well, like y'all are also purple and.
Well, then my buddy went to Texas State and he's like, y'all stole that from us because they're like the Bearcats and then they also do this. And like he said, it points to like.
It all somehow it points to Nacogdoches, another part of Texas.
Probably, yeah. That's Oklahoma.
That's funny. That's good.
My name's Foster, and I'm from Oklahoma.
Ooh.
I just graduated from University of Central Oklahoma, and wanted to get a full-time ministry.
Awesome.
I'm Ashlyn. I'm from Hagen Avenue in Brownwood, and I'm a small group leader and youth intern.
Very cool.
My name's Jacob. I'm at Higher Payne in Brownwood. Go to Hagen Avenue. I'm a small group leader and then a youth intern.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, I'm going to pull up it was nice to meet all of you guys. I will admit right now I won't remember any of your names, but I'll at least know that you're in here and know where I may know you from. Okay. So my PowerPoint's not pulling up. Okay. Am I doing something wrong? Any tech people? Because I can put this little thing right. Y'all can see what I'm doing.
Maybe just type in Google Slides. Is it for a Google slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably type in Google Slides.
Google Slides.
Down on the bottom.
Oh, what did I do?
It's okay.
Sign in?
Sign in.
Okay.
That's the most nerve-wracking part of the whole thing.
Oh, I know. Okay. And then view slideshow. Wow. Okay. Small groups 101. So I'm really terrible at names. I hate naming things. And so I just thought that this was like the most basic generic thing. I was like, we're talking about small groups. But I really just, as I like sat and I prayed and just kind of like asked the Lord, like, hey, what do we want to talk about here? What will actually be beneficial to you? Because small groups is so broad. Every church interprets small groups differently. There's a different format, there's different content, there's different sizes, like so broad. And I really have just said, okay, what have we learned and what has God done that I feel like can be applied in lots of different spaces? But why do we even do small groups? And I've found, especially I think we've learned from COVID a little bit of like how essential small groups are. Like it was the life of like our ministries because it was the only type of ministry we could do was in small groups. But I've just found with Gen Z, specifically this group of people that we're ministering to, the need for small groups is crazy. They are seeking. I have never seen, I've been in college ministry now for about total 10 years, including when I was in college and I was also in college ministry. They're seeking community in a way that I've never seen before. Like real life community, and also like no community is ever good enough at the same time. Like it's this weird thing. But they are desiring and wanting it and willing to put themselves in uncomfortable situations to find it. The other thing is they're seeking truth. They want to know what you believe and why you believe it. And are willing to have conversations about it, which goes into my next points. They're willing to have conversations. They're willing to sit, like, they'll sit with you for 3 hours just to figure out the truth of like what you believe and why you believe it. And, they're willing to ask questions. I have never seen a more eager group of people in asking questions. I've been asked more questions in this last year than I think I ever have in ministry with students. And it's been refreshing. I don't know if you've ever sat with a student and you're like getting coffee and they like have nothing. Like you're like, okay, so like family, dogs, what do you believe about Jesus? And they're like, well, Bible's true. And you're like, cool, this is going nowhere. But the thing is like, they ask really good questions. And the next thing is they're open. So I've never, this is a new thing. They're open. They're open about their struggles. They're open about the things that they're struggling with, and they're willing to repent. Like I have had more confession of sin, in darkness, from students than ever before. Like just kind of like this unashamed, like, man, I'm like struggling with same-sex attraction. I'm struggling with, like addiction over here. Like I literally just can't stop drinking. Like I might be an alcoholic. And it's like, when I was in college, no way, like, was that going to be confessed to especially someone like me? Like that might be between friends or something like that. But they're willing to have confession of just going, hey, this is where I'm at and I need your help in this. And what I found is like the only place that these things happen is in the context of small groups. The only time that those relationships are built to where these things are happening and actually taking place is a context of small groups. You can't have those kind of conversations. You can't have those relationships with students unless you're having a healthy, thriving small group. And I think that's why you see the primary place of Jesus having these conversations in the context with his disciples. You see the interaction and the teaching and the learning within his small group of 12 people. And it makes a lot of sense of why. It's because he had to walk closely with them in order for these things to even take place. And so this generation, it's like, I'm like, our whole ministry is built around small groups. I don't even care what happens in the large gathering. Like, it could be so cool. It could be super lame. But if our small groups, if there's nothing happening there, like, is ministry actually happening? Like, that's a real question that we ask ourselves in that. And so we don't, like, our church personally, we don't have a weekly large gathering. We don't have anything against that. But it's like, if we don't have our small groups, like, it's the life of our ministry and what God is doing. And so this is kind of where I go, man, this is the why, and especially for Gen Z, of what we have to get them into these smaller environments to where they're willing to sit and just take in what that kind of looks like. So I'm going to kind of give you guys just a little bit of context of what our groups look like, just so you have a better understanding of the next things that I kind of go through and how it works. So we have community groups. And they meet on different times of the week. And we have adult hosts. So just like congregation members, and those adult hosts either lead the discussions or just host, and that's kind of based on their giftings, like kind of what they can do. We moved them into the position of leading discussion when we realized like the need for students to just have biblical parents. We're like, these students need to have biblical parents and people that have walked with Jesus for 30 years, a lot more than they need just like their college friend who's still figuring it out at the same time. But we also have student community group leaders, and those students, again, based on the giftings of those students, some of them do lead discussion, but that's not, I wouldn't say that's like the majority, but they carry the load of setting the culture and the tone of those groups. And they carry the weight of meeting with students in that group throughout the week. Because we realized adults can't do that. They don't have the capacity to get coffee at 10 a.m. They have kids, they have jobs, but college students, what do they want to do? They want to meet with you at 10 a.m., right? They want to have coffee with you when it's not convenient for you. And so what do we realize? Who can do that? Other college students. And so we've given college students still leadership and like responsibility in the group. It's just not in the form of leading discussion always. Does that make sense? Okay, because that was the argument when we were like, okay, we're walking away from student-led a little bit in our groups, but how can we still give students leadership? And really, they've learned how to lead discussion, and they've learned how to disciple in a lot more like healthy and organic way, because they're watching it modeled from their hosts, and then being able to do that in a smaller and safer context with students. And so that's kind of like just the breakdown a little bit of that. So does that make sense? Cool. The next thing, I'm just going to establish some common ground. So we're just going to say all small groups are biblically based. You're going over scripture. we know that, like, just put that in there. My goal isn't to tell you how to do it. We're not really going to be talking about format. We're not really going to be talking about curriculum. We're not going to really be talking about that. But like, what key elements have to kind of be in place so it can fit into any kind of context or whatever form you have. And just realizing like each church and college ministry is different. Your demographic is different. And so that's why I don't think I can answer the how. I can't answer how that looks for your church or for your group because it's all different and you have different needs in your college ministry. You have different things. But I would say you need to know with your small group, what need are you trying to meet? What need are you trying to meet in the context of small groups? And for us, teaching is a really, like, there's teaching in it, but it's a really low priority because we believe like they get teaching on Sunday morning from service. They get teaching in Sunday school, and they also get teaching in other discipleship relationships. But small group is not necessarily for that, but it cultivates and supports the teaching that they're taking in. So that's kind of like just knowing, okay, what need are you trying to meet in your small groups and not trying to do it all in just small groups, because it's really hard to do that. You can't have like community teaching, all these different things that we try to just cram into an hour, and it's not. I feel like we just sank in that. We didn't ever do one of those things really well, so we were just average in all of it. And so, know your needs, know what you're trying to meet as a small group, and that'll be helpful. So, so now I'm gonna go into like the different elements. The first element that we've just found to be crucial is hospitality. So that has been that's why we specifically meet in homes. That's why we do that, but it's creating a place people want to stay. So are you creating an atmosphere that students want to stay in? Just like, and the question for you is like, do I want to stay here? Like, do I enjoy being here? Or am I ready to get out the door? If you're ready to get out the door, they are too. And so it doesn't take a lot of time or strategy. Hospitality is not like something that it's like, man, let me sit down for an hour. I would say it's more of a heart posture in that space. All it takes is some thought, a little creativity, and genuine love. Like the question, like I've just kind of said, okay, God, in my small groups, can you like give me genuine love for these people? Because if I genuinely really love them and don't see them as just a project where they walk in to where I want them to attend, or I'm working on my numbers, or like making sure there's attendance or whatever. But like if I genuinely love them, I'm going to be hospitable. Like I'm going to like care for them in a way that if they feel seen and known and all of that. And realizing that comes from the Lord. But one of the points is just have fun. I think in church, we're really like structured, like everything is structured, every whatever, and we're really good fun killers in that, like, oh, we don't really have time for a breakout, like a game, or we college students like need to be silly and need to be silly around you as a leader, and you need to be silly with them and have fun, like have enough space to just have fun with them, and create, this next one is create a space of ownership for students. So this is kind of like, we have our CGs and our CG student leaders, and we kind of push them. Our hosts are hospitable, but we kind of tell them, hey, we want you to be hospitable to your hosts. So what does that mean? That means like you're like, before you leave, it's a culture to pick up your trash. Like it's a culture to like put the furniture back. It's the culture to like take out their trash. And those kinds of things. And it gives them ownership. Like, oh, this is a space that I also take care of. This is not just the host's responsibility, but we do this as a team. And the crazy part is it actually teaches them hospitality. Like it actually teaches them how to serve one another in a context that's like actually real. It's not just stacking chairs. It's like, oh, you have a mom with lots of kids. Doing her dishes is a blessing. Like, do her dishes. But they have to be told that. And so giving the responsibility to students to take that. We had a family that has 2 little children, and this group, so we don't give them like, you have to clean their whole house, but we're like, take out your trash, put the furniture back, like wash the dishes that you've used. And they just started like deep cleaning their whole house every Tuesday night. I know, like, that's wild, but like, they brought, it was during COVID. And so they're like, they just brought their cleaning supplies and cleaned the house on Tuesday nights. And, the mom, like after the end of the semester, just like wept and was like, I couldn't, like, they don't even know like how much of a blessing that was to me each week, because I couldn't keep up with the daily stuff. And I'm like, I didn't even ask them to do that, but it was like giving them ownership and kind of saying and telling the host, you're going to let them do this. Like, they can't come into your home unless you let them do this, because it's a part of who we're asking them to be as adults. So they are going to learn it in this place. And when you frame it like that, they go, oh yeah, training and equipping, good. And I'm like, also you need your house cleaned. So anyway, and so the other part is give groups the resources they need to be hospitable. So a lot of this is a conversation with our hosts home. We have some groups, like we have a lady named Holly Middlebrook, who she wants to cook those girls a gourmet meal every week. And that is her thing. Another group is like, I can't do that. I work full time. There's no way I can do that. And so we resource them like, here's the meal. Here's like what you're going to have students sign up for. This is what it's going to look like. But resourcing, okay, what do you need in order to create this environment? Do you need outside games? Do you need like ideas? Whatever that looks like, just don't expect them, if you just say, be hospitable, that they know exactly what that means. And so just want to talk about the Pages CG. So this group, like, I would tell you when we first asked Joanna and Chuck Page, so it's like, I wish when I was thinking about this breakout, I was like, I wish I could just like bring the people in here, like the all-stars of, because it's not me at all. I like think we have the lamest community group, because they're like the people, like our hosts are just absolutely incredible at it. But the Pages CG, they don't ever follow the timeline. They don't ever like follow the curriculum exactly. They don't ever like, they're out of the box all the time. I can't ever get them in a meeting. I can't whatever. But they are the most hospitable people on the planet. And they're the most spirit-filled people on the planet. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that each student that walks into their home meets Jesus. Like, know that and have seen it. Like, we have more non-believers in that group and will keep coming just because of the way they love them. But if I was so rigid on follow my plan, follow whatever, that my goal in small group is just to kind of get you in the door and get you comfortable so we can have conversations with you. And they do that really well. And it has exploded. Like, we have like 40 kids in that group, and it's like, okay, we've got to do something. Like, we can't just keep doing that. But it's because of the culture, and most of our leaders come from that group. So anyway, hospitality. The next one is commitment. So and commitment is directly connected to belonging. So you won't have commitment from students if there's not hospitality. If they don't feel like they belong there or they're like comfortable there, they won't be committed. But if they belong, if they have a job, if they feel comfortable, they will stay committed. Like, regardless if they agree with you, like regardless if they want to sit there, it creates commitment, and you need commitment in order for small groups to be successful at all. And like the question that I kind of ask, and we ask our CG leaders, is like, are the people in your groups creating friendship in a way that it happens outside of this time? Can you point to an instance where they hung out with somebody else that was like not during that time? And if there's a student in that group that's not doing that, they're not connected, they're not committed. When something hard happens in their life, they're going to disappear. And we've seen that happen time and time and time again. So we try to connect with them in a way that they have created friendship outside of our time that we meet. And when that happens, they stay faithful throughout the semester, and when tests get hard and when things hit the fan. So And the other thing is pursue outside of the job description. So the funny part in this is like, we put it in their job description. So our community group leaders, we tell them like it is an expectation for you to meet with someone once a week that is in your group. But we don't want it to be like always sit down, have coffee, tell me your whole life story, feel super transactional. It's like, no, like go play volleyball with them, go hammocking with them. Like, what are you doing to enjoy life? And can you invite those people into it with you? To where it's not just like this, like the only time I'm on the job is when I'm doing churchy things. It's like, no, are you ministering in the context of like, just what you do? Like, can they go grocery shopping with you? Can they like go clothes shopping with you? That's a really fun thing for girls to do. And I'm like, can you invite somebody that like can just come do that and be your friend? Like just be a good friend, and teaching them how to do that and what that looks like. But that looks to other students like it's pursuing them outside of their job description, because their expectation is you're only going to love me during this window of time. You're like, that's the only time I have time and space for you, and that you're available for me. And so if you love them outside of that, they go, oh, like this isn't just what I've experienced my whole life on Sunday morning and Wednesday night. And so it's a big one. Next one is transparency. So be brave enough to lead them to the hidden places of their lives. Small groups are notorious for asking really bad, terrible questions. Like, it's like, man, we're asking the same questions when they're 23 that you asked them when they were in 5th grade. And they're so shallow, so shallow. Ask good questions. Be willing to have awkward conversations in those contexts. Like, put them in a place where they have to answer a hard question and expose the hidden places of their life. Because that is where transformation happens. It's like, just stop asking bad questions. Like, please, like they are adults, and they're dealing with like really hard, dark things. And so talk to them about real life things. Talk to them about the things that they're experiencing on campus. Talk to them, like, make it really like, how does following Jesus and living for Jesus intersect with their everyday life? Because they don't know how to do that themselves. They don't know how to connect those two, how to love Jesus and how to fight the darkness with loving Jesus. And the only way that you do that is through exposing it, getting it into the light, and giving them, hey, this is actually what it looks like. Like, this is how you do that. But if you don't open those conversations, they don't ever get the how, and it never becomes practical to them. And they just keep living as like compartmentalized Christian. So that's how you create, transparency, and realize that I did say this earlier, but darkness brings awkward conversations. And awkward conversations change lives. When I've been in small groups, this is not, let me repeat, this is not just like, let me share all my sin. Let's just be like a sin sharing thing every time. But it is, hey, someone just brought this up. Like, let's talk a little deeper about that. But I'm not going to totally let this derail the entire conversation. But what I am going to do is, now I know I need to go talk to her after this. I need to go dig a little deeper in her life. But if I didn't open that door in that setting, I would never know. And so it's kind of going, and letting students see you navigate that is, because they're experiencing it all the time. They're experiencing awkward conversations, hard conversations all the time. And so letting them like see you navigate that. Most of the time when that happens in a group, I bring a student that's in that small group that I know like is like desperately wanting to make disciples, really learning how to do that. And I invite them into that conversation. Like, hey, will you come, like, Gracie, will you come with me and sit, while I talk to Emily, and just encourage her and love her? Because what I need is Gracie to kind of pick it up from there. Like, I need Gracie to come and be her friend in that, and be the person that she calls, and be, but I've already set the tone. I've said, hey, this is going to be how we deal with this. And then Gracie knows when she confronts that, how to do that when I'm not present. And so it's just kind of this teaching them how to deal with those things. So the next thing is challenge. So don't lower the bar, they will rise. I said earlier that they want to hear the truth. I think we're like he talked about this, but we're living in such a divided time, and small groups is a time that it shines, right? Like it's a time that the things are said that nobody else is going to say. When someone's just talking to you on the stage, it's like you can see in the room, ooh, here's the division. Ooh, here's where they don't see eye to eye. But like that is the context that you bring the challenge of kind of going, okay, let's walk in unity in this. And what does that look like? And facilitating that with them, but not lowering the standard of what truth is. So it's kind of saying, okay, this is like, I had a girl, this is like, we're like dealing heavily right now with, I think everybody is just same-sex attraction and what that looks like. But I had a girl come to me and it was like welcome week. And she's like, hey, I need to know what you believe about this before I'm going to come. And I just told her like straight out, like, hey, this is what I believe. And the thing is I also am going to trust the Holy Spirit in your life. I'm not going to change my mind, but I'm going to let you like do that and we can have conversations about it. And she said, cool. Can I still come? I was like, absolutely. Please come into that. And she still faithfully participates in our things. But it's like, if I just kind of was like, oh, this could be really awkward and wasn't truthful and honest with her, I feel like she could feel trapped or kind of just even like bait and switched, or like, let me just like coerce you into coming in and then we'll slowly change your mind. They don't do that very well. And so the other thing is it has to be, so challenge in this is not just like sharing truth, but it's also the challenge of like, what does it mean to actually follow Jesus? And kind of going, okay, this is actually how you follow Jesus in college. So you have to make it specific to their context. What are they like? What does it look like to follow Jesus and be a good roommate? It looks a lot different like the world. Like, stop complaining about her clothes on the floor and just get over it. Like, die to self. Like, stop gossiping about her. Like, stop doing whatever. But they're like, oh, that's what that looks like? Oh, like, do her dishes? Oh, like, this is what scripture says about that? Or like, what does it look like to be a diligent student? Like, what does it look like to not cheat on a test and just fail? You know, like, it's like, you didn't study hard enough. Don't cheat. Fail the test. Like, figure it out. And they're like, oh, I don't want to fail a test. And I'm like, well, you didn't study hard enough. Like, that's what life is. And so, but it's like everyone around them is doing school very differently. What is a life of integrity? But if we don't say, okay, following Jesus has been such a theory for so long. Like, so long, such a theory, have no practicals. And so it's kind of saying, okay, let's take the challenge of following Jesus and what that looks like and make it really practical for them that plays out in their everyday life. Like, what does it look like to talk to that kid in your class that nobody's going to talk to? Like, go talk to him. Go, like, invite him to lunch. And they go, oh, okay. And I'm like, okay, what's his name and when are you doing it? Like, who is that person? Or what is this argument that you're having right now with this friend? And when are you meeting with her? When are you having a conversation with reconciling conversation? And what are the things that you're going to say? And they're like, oh, okay, this is what it looks like. And so not lowering the bar, but giving them practical steps of what that looks like, and be consistent and encouraging. I think we're really good at pushing those kinds of things in, like, when the sermon fits or when it's in our curriculum, or, but the more we're consistent with that, and then the more that we believe in them to do it, like, you see transformation, you see the change, and then they actually keep coming back to you to deal with it. Because it's like, you challenged me with this roommate, didn't go well, so now what? You know, like, it's still hard, and the hard doesn't go away, excuse me. But how do we do that? And so they kind of pick it up from there. Okay. Before I go to the next slide, I'm just going to say this. So those are just like key elements that I would say, hey, can you put your finger on in your format, in your curriculum, in your whatever, that those elements are present. Like, how are you being hospitable? How are you creating transparency? How are you creating commitment with one another? How are you creating challenge? And being able to go, okay, this is how I'm doing that. This is what it needs to look like, or how it takes form. And can I just tell you, like, we started with format and curriculum. Like, we started with like, okay, here's going to be how we format it. Here's going to be what it looks like. And over time, we've just seen God transform, like, kind of just go, will you just open your hands? Will you just open your hands and let me do ministry? And it's like, okay, yeah, well, I'll stop being a stickler about the fact that you like didn't let your students leave until 9:00 at night. Like, cause I'm like, no, 7:30, you end at 7:30, like end at 7:30. And the pages are like, can't comprehend that, you know? But the CUIs group, it's like, they end at 7:30, and it's like, we know them, and we like, it's like, okay, your CG leaders, how you're respecting that host home is you leave by 7:30, and it's your job to get all the students out of their house. But just kind of going, being flexible and being willing to kind of go, okay, how can I can still accomplish a goal with a lot of different people if they're not following my rigid plan and my rigid structure. And so now that structure is good and it's needed, and you have to have it. They have to have direction. They have to have instruction, but being flexible with that. And so your leaders matter. This is kind of like what I have said has changed the game for us. Put leaders where they're gifted. So if you're thinking like, man, you have to know your congregation and you have to know your students. The best CG leaders that we have in hosts are already gifted in hospitality. Like, that is not something I have, they teach me, you know, like Joanna Page teaches me, Kara Cooper teaches me, like these women, like these families. I'm not going to put somebody, that's terrible at hospitality, because those people exist. Like, those people exist, and that's okay. That's not how God has gifted them. But I have to know this is what I'm trying to achieve. And so let me actually look at the congregation and who God has given this church body to serve these people and fit in this role. It's like we take spiritual gifts tests, but we don't ever use them or use them strategically. I'm like, why do we even do this? Like, use the tools and the resources that you have to know your congregation to put them in the right place, and then actually do it. And I would say that with student leaders. So we piece people together. It's like, okay, we know they're super hospitable. We know this person brings a lot of challenge. We know this person is willing to go deep and be transparent. And so what are we going to do? Put them together. You know, we're going to create that environment. And so giving, just asking the Lord to have eyes to see, how can I piece these things together to have these giftings shine and be used, and not just get one really good teacher, and think that everything else is just going to happen. And so the other thing, I've already touched on this, but give clear instruction and ownership to who God has created them to be. So give clear instruction. Give them, okay, this is kind of expectations. But if they don't stray into sinning or being unhealthy, or their family isn't healthy and it's your job to shepherd that, kind of going, okay, let them be who God has created them to be. Let them flourish. Let them have ownership. Let that, if it's outside of your box and uncomfortable, let them do it. And it's okay if they fail. It's okay if it doesn't work out. But let them be that. Support and listen to them. That's the biggest thing, is I've just kind of said, okay, what do you need? What do you need? And how's it going? What do you need? How's it going? How are our students doing? What can we do better? What's happening in our ministry? What are they are those people are the ones that are know the rhythms and the undercurrents of what's happening in our students' lives. So my job is to give them everything I have. I'm here to resource you to be who God's called you to be. And then I'm going to listen to you, and change and shift whatever I need to make your job as easy as possible. The other thing is we have our host homes. I recommend University Heights. They have if you don't listen to the Roundup podcast, but having congregation, like your congregation and men and women come and support you and be like parents in these students' lives, but to make their job as easy as possible. I'm like, I need you for the next 10 years. Like, I need you to be I tell Holly at Middlebrook all the time, she's like, I want to make them a meal. I go, you can do that as long as you don't quit because you're tired. I'm just like, I just need you, you can do that, but you're not allowed to quit just because you're over serving, you're over committing. So my job is I'm going to make your job as easy as possible, because we know opening your home once a week or doing whatever, it's a big commitment. And so that's kind of what we do is job easy as possible. If it's too hard for you, you just stop doing that thing. I'll figure out how to fix it. So you can still faithfully serve in that. I've kind of gone over this a little bit. So we have our how it looks for us. We're in homes, different times of the week. Host home, get to choose that. What night works for you? What fits your schedule? And then our content, it's sermon-based. Why did we do that? Because it's easy for them. All our host homes and our discussions leaders really have to do is come and listen to the sermon, read over the questions right beforehand. And then college directors, John and I, we write the guides. So we give them exactly what they're going to go through, everything that they need. Our discussion leaders are our host homes or students. Again, this is depending on giftings. If the host home, like Holly Middlebrook, she doesn't want to lead discussion, but she's like, I'm really good at being the sidekick. I'm really good at just jumping in and saying side comments and leading in that way. But we have a really gifted student leader that's like, this would be really great for you, who brings a lot of challenge. Carly, she's a challenge girl. You don't sit with her and not be challenged, but she's also not super hospitable. You're like, ooh, okay. But put her with Holly, dynamic duo. And so the next thing is student CG leaders. They support conversation and culture of the group. This has been, I don't know if y'all have ever sat in a really awkward small group and it's terrible. It's oh, I want to get out of here. Nobody's talking. I'm the only one answering questions. And so we were like, we can't have that. We got to kill as much awkward as possible. Let the awkward happen when it's good, but when it's bad, let's get rid of it. And so we kind of said, okay, we're going to put students together where it's your job is to make it not awkward. Answer the questions, keep conversation going, bring other students into that. The other thing that I would say is one person can't carry the weight of the entire group. I think we're notorious for this. We're like, let's put two people in it, one person in it, and they got to do all of it. And we've just seen that crash and burn time and time and time and time again, that it takes a team of people. And the really cool part is a team of people learning how to do ministry together is really sweet. And really, I feel represents the body of Christ in a lot clearer picture. And I've talked about this a lot. We work with each group to make it fit them and who God has created them to be. So in all of our structure, we're flexible. All of our structure, we're willing to have a conversation. If it still glorifies God, we're good with it. We're cool with it. So, questions. And this is just, oh, did I mess it up? The pictures. No! Oh, ah! Okay. Sorry, I'm being loud. A little obnoxious. Okay, so these are just a couple of pictures of what our groups have looked like and fun and whatever. But any questions? I don't even know how much time we have left. Am I over?
Still 11:45,
Oh my gosh, I'm killing it. Yes. Okay, cool. Yes. Yeah.
Do your students choose the group they want based on what night?
So we give we don't give our student, so we have lots of different student leaders that have different roles, but our community group student leaders, we place them. So we we give them, we need to know if you have a Tuesday night class, you can't be in a Tuesday group. But if you're just I don't know, I got some club thing I gotta do, it's okay, well, sorry. If this is the role you want to play, we kind of need you in this space. So,
That's for the student leaders.
That's for our student leaders.
But just what about your students who attend?
Students that attend, we give them free, like you can choose whatever group fits your schedule.
And then do they stay in that group for the year?
We try to get them to as much as we possibly can. So and most of them want to stay. And if they want to move, we let them move. It's like, okay, if this group is not working for you, there's another, because each group has a different culture. Each group has a different feel. Each group, and so this might not work for you, but try another one. And that's been really good. So, yeah.
So I'm kind of new going into the position.
Mm-hmm.
There's been somewhat of a culture established, but not really much. But they have a large group gathering on Tuesday nights, or we do. I mean, like I said, I'm new going into this. So, I mean, what advice would you have, trying to transition from that large group gathering and it's not like a big group, but going from that to maybe trying to transition into small groups? Because that's kind of my vision. And I've been in college ministries that what you're describing is straight from a college ministry that I've come from before.
Yeah.
In a similar context.
Yeah.
So.
What I would recommend is go really slow.
Yeah.
Go really slow and put people in the right places.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you try to force it and get the wrong people in there, it's going to crash and burn. Seek the Lord, ask the Lord, okay, who are my leaders here? Who do I need to place here? Get to know your congregation and other staff people and do it that way. So.
And one more question to add on that, sorry.
Yeah.
And thanks for that answer. Do you have y'all interview your leaders, and do you have certain commitments or I don't want to say a code of conduct, that sounds really realistic, but you know what I mean, some kind of expectations that they kind of sign? Because I know, I was in a ministry context where we did interview leaders, and we did kind of have expectations that they kind of signed up for, kind of almost a contract, I think.
Yeah. So we do. They apply for our leadership team, and we have different teams. We let them sign up for teams. We do have a code of conduct. It's all scripture. So it's literally just our expectation is for you to actively pursue Jesus and follow Jesus. And if sin occurs in your life, really what this does is just allows us to have a conversation with you. But that's also where we get to know their giftings and know where they want to be placed, what that looks like. They have to be in our ministry, an active part of our ministry for a year, kind of before we let them onto that team. But if you're starting out, it's kind of okay, who are your current leaders?
I have kind of a group that would be good. They're more adults. I don't really have, or kind of understand the context based on who was there before. I really don't have any student leaders identified. So I'm trying to build that foundation first and kind of go from there. So.
Yeah, that's good.
Thanks for your.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So if you're leading this small group, do you also spend one-on-one time with just the people in your small group? Say if you have a relatively medium-sized ministry as a whole, do you spend just time one-on-one with your small group only, or do you try to spend time with other people in your ministry? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So our host homes, really their main, our adult leaders, their main little bubble is their that group. But it's not an expectation for our adult leaders to meet with them individually. Kind of just, again, like I said earlier, their capacity is I need you just Tuesday night to give it all you got, and then take care of your family and all your other responsibilities elsewhere. But that's why we've put our college students, it is their responsibility to interact with one-on-one. And I honestly encourage group settings. I say one-on-one is for a private conversation, needs to be one-on-one. But if it doesn't need to be one-on-one, make it 3 or 4. Just because that relationship is way more important than I can't be your one-on-one friend. Like I can't do that. But these college students can. And so I try to, like, as much as I can, encourage those type of relationships and friendships. So yeah, a lot of people will probably say something against that. Like one-on-one is like the thing. And I just have found, like, I can't be your best friend. And if I'm your only friend here, you're not going to last very long. So.
More logistical question.
Yeah.
How do y'all get people plugged into your groups? Do they fill out a form?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is it by invitation?
Yes, both. So at the beginning of the semester, we have signups where they get to put their name, phone number, email, pick what day of the week. We have co-ed and we have gender specific. And so, but then throughout the year, we have, like, every group is in GroupMe. Woohoo, GroupMe! So, love-hate relationship. And really, after the year gets rolling, students just start jumping in there, and they get added by getting added to the GroupMe. And then we normally, we have someone in the group, and it's normally one of our student leaders that also handles some of the admin stuff, like the attendance, getting contact information, and getting that to us that way.
And for the people that fill out the form, do the leaders reach out? Like, do they get that information and reach out? Invite them, or?
Yes and no. I would say at the beginning, when welcome week kind of starts, because it's so much, we do a general, like, here's where you're going, here's the address, this is kind of what it needs to look like. But then throughout the year, we do ask our student leaders, hey, this is a new person, could you reach out to them? Can you make sure that they get there and be welcoming? And we normally let our host home know if we've gotten a form. So normally, if we're getting a form throughout the year, it means they're not relationally connected at all to that group. And so it's like them coming into that space can be really hard and intimidating. And so knowing, like, okay, I need to warn those host homes and those leaders to be ready to receive a new person that knows nobody, because that can be really intimidating and really hard. So.
I think what you said about the transparency is so key, but, like, creating a culture of transparency is so hard, and especially if, like, the leaders aren't buying. Because I think the leaders have to, like, be willing to be transparent first.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, how do you get, like, develop that culture, and especially get the leaders bought in on being transparent?
So a lot of that has, like, honestly come with time. And I think that it's really interesting when you walk into a church. I think you either have, like, a super transparent church that's super vulnerable, or super guarded, not transparent. And really finding the balance of those two is really tricky. But I would say it's like, I have started in just with those community group leaders, and demonstrate, just even demonstrating what does healthy transparency look like, and asking good questions with them in a trusted environment. And the other part is, like, when you do that with them, and then also their host homes, I've found that there's more trust with their host home leaders and those adults. And when that begins to be established, that's when that kind of happens. That it happens a lot more, like, with that host home or with me or our other kind of, like, leaders in college ministry. When they start seeing that demonstrated in a healthy way, it starts to become, like, brought into that group in a healthy way. But those host home, like, our adult leaders that's the other part, are key of, if they're hospitable, they're going to get those conversations one-on-one or in the prayer requests, or it naturally kind of just comes because they feel comfortable in that space. And then to be able to step into that with them in a deeper way. So I would also say it takes time. Like, trust has to be established. But yeah, I hope that answered your question. Yeah.
I just something to put on that like has helped me in the past. I was told, like, sometimes if you like overshare, and I'm not like talking about like trauma dumping on anybody, just like, but just like a overshare. Essentially, the best way I can explain it is like, let's say you want to ask your mom, can you go out? And then you're like, oh mom, can I stay out till 3 a.m.? Your mom's obviously going to be like, no, that's crazy. But then you're like, okay, fine. Can I stay out till 12? And then that's really what you wanted anyway for 12, but you asked for like more. And I feel like sometimes like when I'm talking to people, if it's like I'm to the extreme of like just sharing like my life openly, then they will come to meet me like at that middle point where I really want them to meet me at.
Yeah. I would also say sometimes like, when a student's being vague, like, and just like I sat with a girl, and we were doing Bible study, and she said, well, this verse like really stands out to me because of kind of like currently what's happening with me and my boyfriend, but like really didn't say anything about what was happening. And it was also just like me and 3 other girls. And I said, so what's happening with your boyfriend? Like, just like, okay, so you were vague in that. But like, hey, hard stuff is happening at home. What's happening at home? So.
I think girls just naturally.
Oh yeah, don't ask me about boys. I'm like, I don't even.
Our guys groups, I'm like, dude, I know stuff is going on in your life, but they're just always like, guys we have problems with our emotions.
Yeah.
Saying what's going on. And like,
yeah.
So like breaking down that wall with guys, it's like, oh, it's brutal.
To go with that, like it's just like what you're like you were saying, they're gonna meet you where you are at, where you go to.
Yeah.
And modeling that transparency is like something that's hard as a leader, even like how much do you share as a leader in your what you're going through and things like that, because you don't want anybody to see you as like the high horse, but you also don't want to like, I don't know, overshare, kind of what you were saying, like too much. But so I think modeling the transparency allows, and being vulnerable and being humble enough to admit that, hey, I don't got it all figured out either, is going to allow them to want to maybe share more and be more honest and transparent and vulnerable and humble with you.
Yeah.
Is that kind of?
Yeah. And if you hang out, a specific like calling that Lord has given me is just like, show people the hidden things of ministry. So that's like the messy things of ministry. And God's just kind of like set my life up that way. I work with my husband. All college students see our marriage. The most premarital counseling I have is just being a part of our ministry. It's like you see it on display. But parenting, everybody's in the nitty gritty of our kids' lives. But I think that those are the things that students really need to see. How do you faithfully follow Jesus, be a mom, and struggle in that? Like, how do you struggle? Like, they see my friendships, they see those different things. Now, am I like telling them like, oh, this is like really hard with my friend Ann, and this is why, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, they see like, oh, how do we like interact? And tell them like, hey, these are like sharing. We just moved houses, and I was reading through Acts, and we were in Acts 2 and talking about giving all these things away. And we just moved houses, and I wanted to have this big garage sale and make all this money so I could buy this really cool stuff for my new house. And the Lord just like convicted me and was like, all that baby stuff that was given to you, like you need to give it away. And I was like, no, but like that cool couch for like ministry, that I can do and that I can use. But it was in context of scripture that I got to share. This was the struggle in my heart. Like, this was real, and this was hard for me, where God said, and then, so he said that, then he brought this couple that moved away, that's about to have a baby, into our house just on Saturday morning. And it was like, okay, God, here's my high chair, here's my crib, here, like me gritting my teeth, like here's my diaper genie. And, but to like share that with them. And it was in the context of, because like scripture convicts, and we've got to have real life examples of how it changes our life and how we wrestle with it still. And I would say that's healthy. So.
Just a great rule of thumb, one-liners help me. I just really seen this work well and work poorly, but if transparency can always have a redemptive purpose. I think sometimes our temptation as leaders is we use transparency as a way to bond, a way to immediately get a connection with somebody. And that should be a check if that's, our transparency needs to be for a teaching redemptive purpose. Otherwise, we're not offering any hope. We're just sharing that I'm a flood sinner just like you are. So that's a perfect example of, sharing what is the scripture taught, how am I convicted, what do I then do with it? Not just, I want to have the cutest stuff, and this is how I'm going to do it. And so I just think transparency is great for a redemptive purpose. And that's just a line that just helps check me all the time.
That's good. That's good. Thank you for sharing. Good. Any other questions?
Yeah, I see that your groups are pretty big. What's your average size for groups?
So they don't start this way. I would say, during COVID, we did 10 or less. That's kind of like where we started them. But I would tell you, I have found the sweet spot for college ministry because they do, if they're just trying to meet new people, getting into really under 10 is uncomfortable for them. It's too small. They want to be at a place that's cool. There's life here. Oh, there's things happening. That 20 has really been our sweet spot. Now there's the next tier that you could kind of talk about where you go there, and that's why I say there's all different kinds of metrics in that of what's actually small group, how do you define a small group, how do you whatever, and I think that changes based on ministries, but our sweet spot for what we do is really about 20, and if there's more than 20 people consistently coming in the spring, so there you go, in the spring, fall is it fluctuates like crazy, but in the spring, if most of our groups are over 20, we add another group. But if they're all right at 20 in the spring, we're going to do that again through the fall. But most of our groups are ending about in the 20 to 30 to 45 range. And we really only multiply, people might get on to me for this, but in the fall, we we'll add another group in the fall, because I've tried kind of breaking groups in the middle of the year, and it just kills those relationships in those groups. So, but we do have discipleship groups that kind of happen within those small groups outside of that.
Do you struggle with transparency as the group grows larger? Because, I've always been accustomed to smaller small groups.
I think we haven't, the thing is they're having harder, transparent conversations in a more public setting already on social media. They're having the conversations you would only have between 3 people of really close friends and posting it everywhere on social media. And our kind of thought is, man, we've got to learn how to do that here. We've got to do that facing one another and talking with one another. And if there's super sensitive, because there is people that you go, probably shouldn't have shared that, or but I just our leaders steer that conversation, but I also just our other students need to learn how to be compassionate and not super awkward in it. They need to learn how to just kind of take it. And I don't need to protect them because they need to figure it out. And I would say we really haven't struggled with, and some of that is in the asking the questions, you as a leader going, okay, what is appropriate for this group? But going into, I'm not going to ask, sorry if this is too much, but I'm not going to ask, do you struggle with porn? In this type of setting. But we might talk about sexual sin in a general way. And so I don't know if that helps answer your question. So asking the questions, in a way that is appropriate for that group size. And the co-ed groups don't go as deep as our gender specific groups. And that's okay. That's appropriate and that's okay. And the students that want that typically go to that group. The students that don't want that, don't go to that group. So you still look really confused on your face. So I'm like,
there are small groups, like I look at that picture and there's like 30, 40 people, and I'm like, that's great. Like,
yeah.
I feel like some people would never talk, they'd be there the whole time and just like never talk. And like, as a small group, that like, it like rattles me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Some won't, but they're still learning.
Yeah. I would say they may not talk, but I would also say in the hangout moments, in the fun moments, in the whatever, they're having conversations with one another. And so creating those spaces that maybe it's not like the discussion time, but it's kind of like, I think it's depending on size of ministry and what that looks like. We have not always been this. This is like the Lord has kind of done that. And so just kind of going, okay, this size, and if you're trying to get conversation, a group of 10 is really great. I would say there has to be relational depth that happens. I think it's really hard for a new student to come into a really established group of 10, and you have to be really hospitable, really welcoming, and navigate that really well. So
I don't know, I've kind of been in that same context where we had a group that was that big, and it was co-ed, and I was the leader, and I led with a girl, and she would sometimes take the girls, and have more of an in-depth conversation within the group, and I would take the guys and kind of split it that way. During that time, if we wanted to drill deeper, kind of like you were saying. So
yeah.
That's a thought.
Yeah. Also different giftings. So we have a guy named Randall Cooper who is probably one of the best host homes we've ever had. But he's going to read those questions right off the paper every single time. And I'm not going to get him to ever do it any different. But is that group going to probably be a little bit more shallow in conversation? Yeah, that's kind of what that group is. But Kara, his wife, and outside of that are sending text messages each week, praying for them, taking them out to dinner. And that's all on their own. But then you have Chuck Page, who's writes books and is a doctor and is into transparency and vulnerability that happens in that group time is different. And that being okay, because it's happening in both places, just in the way that those leaders are gifted. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Sorry if I
No, that's okay. I
I'm told that I just any answer that is given to me, I'll just
it's okay. I just want to make sure that I'm actually answering the question. So, yeah, no, that's good. It's good. Okay, one more question. Any other question?
It's not a small group question.
Yeah.
So kind of let my lesson out there. But my first 2 and a half college, I was actually at SFA and then I transferred. So I was just wondering how are y'all considered a student organization, or how do y'all? Because I had whenever I was at SFA, I had no connections any type of church.
So sorry.
So how do y'all
Makes me so sad.
and stuff like that?
What year was it? I'm just curious.
I was there from 2017 to 2018.
Okay. Yeah. So we are a student organization, and we are on campus every week serving coffee, interacting with students. We call it Coffee Stand. It's kind of become an on-campus coffee shop. So it's been really interesting. But that's the primary way. We've also social media has been really huge. I think if you're not using your social media to reach this generation, really silly. We have people that come to our events that never come to Coffee Stand, never come to church, but show up knowing no one just because they saw it on a story, someone else's story or someone else's Snapchat. And it's okay, I would never have done that. You didn't even talk to us at Coffee Stand. You just walked by. They're yeah, we walk by every week. And I'm did you stop? Did you say hello? No. I'm okay. So glad you're here. But, so that's a lot of our networking, but we also, a lot of that is through our students. So we really heavily push making relationships in classes, and in the things that you're interested in, to meet other people. So so sorry we weren't around. I hate that. It's like, oh. So
yeah, like, honestly, like whenever I first got there, like I had nowhere where to go and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was like seeing like how many people y'all have and stuff. I was like, this is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, how do they do it?
Yeah, we're also kind of like an undercover ministry, I feel like, in Nacogdoches. Like, I don't know. We're just not they're like all these hidden groups of people, underground networking. And then they're like, oh, wow, there are people here. So, yeah, cool. Well, can I just pray for you guys and the things that God is doing in your life and in your ministry? God, man, I thank you for these people in this room. God, I thank you for the people that you've put in their lives, in the small groups, in the small spaces, in the spaces that aren't platformed or seen in any way. I know I struggle with is this even doing anything? Is this am I actually even making a difference? Are our lives being transformed as I'm shuffling children around and carrying so many other responsibilities? And but God, would you just remind us that you say that nothing returns void. Nothing that we do, no thing that we do to honor and glorify you is returned void. That when we distribute and present the fruit of the Spirit, and we walk in your Spirit and we walk in obedience, that you bring forth fruit. It's a part of just what you do, that apart from you, we can do nothing. But when we abide and we walk with you, that you bear more fruit, that you bear much fruit. And so would we just be vessels and use whatever you've given us. God, I pray just for them to have eyes to see their congregation the way that you see their congregation, to see the giftings that you've given those people, to see how you have just equipped that body for the work of the ministry in their city. God, would they not try to do it alone or by themselves? Would they see just even in their students how you've equipped them and how you have gifted them? And would they just know and have wisdom of how to pull that out? God, I know I'm constantly scratching my head, but God, would we not stop trying to see who you created these people to be and be leaders who pull that out and empower and encourage and train and equip them for the work of the ministry that they have in their spaces that we could never go or never be in the conversations we could never have. And so would you just bless these small groups? Would you bless these leaders? There's so many leaders that are stepping into small groups. And God, would you just first anchor them and secure them as a child of yours, that they are your child, that it is not their ministry, it's not how many people they can get in the door, but it's that you are theirs and that they have good news to share. And so would they share that confidently and boldly and love the people around them genuinely? I thank you for this opportunity, and would you just take anything that I have said that has not been of you or that does not bring glory to you, would you just wipe it away, and would they just walk out of here with the things that are from you and that bring honor and glory to your name? And I just pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you guys so much.